Your success as a product manager will depend on your ability to understand your users' needs, to show engineers why their work matters, and to prove to executives what you got done, in that order. But if you organize your work using projects, then you're achieving those priorities backwards. As product developers, we want happy customers, motivated coworkers, and make lots of money. And today I'm excited to show you how planning by goals is better than planning by projects to achieve those things. My name is Jun Kim, and the gist of this talk is also available as a blog post on my website. I've been a software engineer for about 10 years with a keen interest in peopleware and organizational innovations. Formally educated in both business and computing science, my contribution to the public so far has been a Scrum book. But today, I'm not here to lecture you today about true Scrum or why you're doing Scrum wrong. I want to talk to you about goals and how it's an improvement over project management. Whether you use tickets, sprints, or design thinking, your focus should be on the why. So, what's so good about projects? Why do we still use them? Well, projects are a really efficient way to allocate resources so that if I have many people, I can have those people on one project or many projects. And a person can be on multiple projects, so it's easy to do cost accounting for these projects. It's also a good way to track what has been done in the past. Individual performance can be measured by seeing how many points they scored or how many cards that they passed in Kanban versus what was expected. It's also good for responding to foreseeable risks. Before something bad happens, what to do in response can be discussed and prepared beforehand. But what's not so good about projects? Well, people shouldn't be spread about between multiple projects anyway, because quality will suffer if focus is spread out. The best work happens during deep thoughts on one problem. And collaboration is much slower when busy with other projects. And tracking past commitments is irrelevant when the priority shifts. If something more important comes up, that should get done regardless of what the expectations were at the beginning of the quarter. And encountering unknown unknowns require constant replanning. As new information comes in from users, what will produce most impact should change and change what the team does as a response. And projects are too rigid to respond to those kinds of surprises. Story time. I was working at my former employer and I was tracking performance and UX on a video player. And we were using a vendor for a user experience score out of 100. And tens of thousands of per month we were spending on this metric. And I was tasked to replace the vendor by coming up with our own performance score. But a few weeks later, the exec that asked for it got fired, and now nobody needed it anymore, and it got scrapped. Was it needed in the first place? Then why did we do it? It was a bunch of wasted effort, and it yielded zero impact. Well, people might have been happy at the time that it got done, but there was no good reason to have that score in the first place. So, what was the lesson learned? Should I have just built it faster next time so that I can move on with my life? Or was the exec wrong and we should have gotten a better exec that can see into the future? Or is it that I shouldn't be caring at all because I got paid? No, my time is worth more than money. I like to care about the things that I work on. I think the real lesson here was that we cared about the wrong things. We cared about getting the score out without questioning why it was needed, why it was good in the first place. So in a typical organization, what happens is that there's a vision. And this vision comes from the founder or the higher ups. And often this is the reason that I come to join an organization. And then these visions are quickly turned into projects. And the motivation for the project is obscured from the developers who work on these tasks in the projects. It is now, and now the developers have no clue whether it's the right thing to do. They only know that it needs to get done because they were told to get it done. And when the vision is turned into projects too soon by someone else, the project's vision gets lost in translation. So what's the alternative? Goals. The better alternative is to allow the vision to propagate to everyone who's working on that vision in the same channel that the work is distributed, and not through some pep talks or town halls. So instead of committing to the actions towards a project, the person who's doing the project should be committing to the reason that they're getting it done. And that way they can be better motivated, and they can respond to change much more proactively. So the vision turns into goals, which are then decomposed into sub-goals and are turned into tasks by the person who has that sub-goal. So, so a goal turns into a task at the latest possible moment. So, but what is a goal? A goal is an alternative state of the world that we can see and work towards. It doesn't specify what to do to achieve that state. For a product, it's usually growth, retention, or revenue. And OKRs can be goals, but not necessarily so. It usually comes in the form of increased metric by amount for value. So for example, an example of a goal that's verbalized is increase existing user usage by 10% for better retention. Of course, these words are just proxies for the state of the world that they represent. So for each individual that's assigned a goal, the product vision should be divided, and this kind of organization who's working towards that vision has a kind of autonomy. And it takes the autonomy from developers, courage from leadership, and a healthy amount of trust in between. And that leader is you. Why goals? How are goals better? Well, first of all, it produces more impact. Working on the right thing has more than double the impact because the whole features can be discarded if it doesn't contribute to the goal. Oftentimes, when a project has scope creep, it's just adding on a little bit of extra value for more work where the effort could have been better spent on a different project or a different goal. And scope creep cannot be justified if it doesn't contribute to the goal. And it enables better day-to-day communication. The priorities clarify which tasks are more important, and people share the same context when goals are shared. There is no more asking, oh, can I ask for help? And the counterparty asks, oh, what are you trying to get done? Because that's what's more important than the question that's asked. And this is what we're doing in this order for that reason. And the coordination happens to produce better communication. And lastly, it's easier planning and prioritization. When incoming requests now require justification, we can stay on track towards the goals that were set before, and we can reject work more easily. And management cannot mandate something without goals if they agree that goals are the way to go. and backlogs are populated only to the necessary gradient. I'll go over more of that later. So here's a roadmap on a big scale where it starts with a product vision. Instead of delivering on projects that are translated from the vision, those the vision is turned into goals, and the big goals are divided into sub-goals. And each sub-goal comes with its impact and effort estimations, and what produces the greatest impact per effort gets prioritized. And no other goal will have tasks associated with them until this goal is achieved, until the most important goal is achieved. And this most important sub goal should take about a week to about a month to accomplish. And when we have different goals, different sub goals within the big goal, then they can be ranked. And the estimates, when we run the estimate, it turns out that the 80-20 rule will be ranked so that the most important goal has an outsized impact over the next one, and so forth. And when we do this, the developer does not need to ask some higher authority figure on what's more important. They can figure it out and get it done right away. There is no more waiting around for somebody to tell me what's more important. So, what is the purpose of planning if it's not for specifying what to do, or to make promises, or to set expectations for my job? Well, it's to hype up the goal and the vision so that we're excited to work on it, and to see ourselves through the effort so that we can get dopamine out of it, and to commit to the effort and the reason why we're doing it. If we don't specify the work ourselves, then we're just being told what to do, and that's not as fun. And finally, to learn from the expected. Let's go over some of these aspects. So here's a dopamine curve over time. Our brains are hardwired for goals, and it's the motivation hormone and not just the reward hormone. And as we expend effort towards something that we can see, it feels good. It feels good to climb a mountain, and actually being on the mountain only releases a little bit extra hit of dopamine. And work can be fun if it's goal-oriented too. But we don't always succeed, and an eventual failure will result in disappointment. And when we get disappointed, that's an opportunity for learning. And because projects are either not done yet or done and over with, there is no room for disappointment or the high from getting projects done. Once the project is done, there's always a next project. So let's see the learning mechanism that happens with goal formation. Unlike projects that are just done and leave no room for error, after we expend the effort towards the goal, we can get a result that is either what we set out to do, or there's an error that we didn't actually quite get there yet. Either it took more effort than we expected, or it yielded less impact, or both. And what we do is we take the error and then we feed it back to making that error correction into a goal. And that's how we do learning. We do the same but better. And we see that the goal is the source of fun and learning. And we like this. And if managers are the only ones setting and achieving product goals, then they're taking all the fun and all the lessons learned as well. And when we set goals and plan for them, we're visualizing both the end state and the effort during planning. And it feels good when we're having fun at work when we do that. And it activates the dopamine release. Otherwise, we're just a cog in the wheel of the big corporate machine. So, what's really important? Should we tolerate yet another useless feature that nobody asks for and nobody will use? It's a lot more fun as developers to know why we're building what we're building. And with goals, we can both achieve more impact and recognition. But they're just side effects to having fun at work. After all, we spend half our time awake working, and we don't want that to be meaningless, like Sisyphus. And I believe that achieving ambitious goals together at work is the best way that we can spend our time alive. And to learn more, I welcome you to talk with me directly, free of charge. My email is june@june.kim. I'm also looking for meaningful work. And if you want to work with me, please, let's talk. And if you're convinced that goals are better than projects, then please spread the word and go change the world of work. Thank you.